Situation in Afghanistan certainly is a crisis that the Russians are intimately familiar with.
Flashback in history, of course, the Soviet Union had what was a disastrous campaign against many of these same forces in Afghanistan. Many of the weapons supplied, much of the training done at the time, now believed to be in the hands and among the allies of Mr. bin Laden. So yes, the history books would tell us that the Soviet Union, now collapsed of course, the Soviet Union had a disastrous experience when it sent ground troops into Afghanistan. That a lesson being studied very closely right now by the Bush administration as it prepares for military options, and officials, despite that history, saying the American people need to be prepared for the likelihood, the strong possibility, that there will be a ground element, a commando element of any U.S. military response.
One last question. You said the Russians have pledged help with intelligence. How helpful would their involvement be?
Well, that is a question. It's very hard to get the specifics out of the administration right now, given the sensitivity of the military planning and given the political sensitivity around the world. Some of these governments will help publicly. Others perhaps would do so privately because it would be difficult for their own stability to do so in a public way. But we are told the Russians have had statements of support from President Putin and others. We are told as well there has been some exchange of intelligence information about the bin Laden organization, the Pakistani government, and indeed the government of India, we are told, providing that information as well. Administration officials very gratified so far by the response of almost everyone they have reached out to for help here, although they do concede the true test will come days, weeks, and perhaps even months down the road as the administration implements what the president and others say will be a sustained campaign that takes not days, not weeks, not months, but several years.
All right. See you in a little bit, John. Thanks so much. We continue to focus our efforts on what's happening in the markets today. The Dow down some 474 points. The NASDAQ down. Okay, here comes the number in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, 74. Let's check back in with Lou, who has a guest to share his perspective with us. Good morning again.
Paula, thanks. Good morning. As you say, the market holding here in a range of about 450 to 500 points off on the Dow. And I want to turn now to Brian Finnerty. Brian, are you there?
I can hear you, Lou.
Brian
Lou.
Finnerty, are you there?
Yes, I am, Lou. I can hear you loud and clear. Yes, can you hear
Brian,
me?
I can't hear you if you're there.
You can't hear me, John.
Brian?
Yes, Lou.
Okay, there you are.
Okay.
I apologize. As
That's
you
okay.
know, it's a little noisy down here
Yes,
today.
it is.
Are you surprised at the weakness here, or do you think that it's a little better than you might have expected?
Well, I think now the levels we're attaining right now, Lou, are a little bit better than we expected. You know, Lou, we all came in, I think it was almost like a script. Everyone said, well, we'll probably be down about 5, maybe a little more % on the opening, and then we'll see what happens. And I think, Lou, a lot of us right now are encouraged by the fact that we opened on the lows, and we've sort of traded up off those lows since the opening. So I think it's a little bit encouraging that in fact is happening. They opened them down as low, low, and now we're starting to work our way back a little bit higher. It's not a rush, but it's a gradual lifting of the stocks.
What are you going to look for here, Brian, as an indicator on the results of the day?
Well, we'd all love to see it close up on the day. I don't think that's going to be that really the key, though, Lou. I think the key is we got the markets open. It was a huge effort to get them open by Dick Grasso, the president of the NYSE, by the people at NASDAQ and all the exchanges around the world, by all the firms in concert to get the markets open technically, to get the lines working again, to get everything going. That's a big victory right there. Point number 2, Lou, as we said, the markets opened on the low, but they were trading a little bit higher, and it's very, very orderly. We had a little bit of emotion on the opening. I mean, right after, we had the moment of silence and God Bless America, there were some wild swings right there, and particularly here in the NASDAQ marketplace. But that has calmed down, and we're working higher.
All right, let's focus on what should be a considerable amount of strength in this market, and that is those corporate stock buybacks, those stock purchase plans. How significant do you think they are here? Do you think they've entered the market, or will they wait on it?
I think a lot of them are waiting, Lou. I think what happens is those buybacks get announced, and then what happens is the corporate repurchase people try to look for opportune moments. What the buybacks are used for, and have historically been used for, we had a lot of them back in the '87 crash. Right. There's a lot of them going on now. They've been used for stabilization. They're not used to run the price of a stock up. As a matter of fact, as you probably know, but viewers should know, corporate buybacks are not allowed to outbid the next natural buyer, so that they cannot in fact, run the price of a stock up. But what they can do is provide support and underlying support for some of the stocks. And I think it's a good thing that corporations that do have excess cash can do this, and that will be a big support for this marketplace right here.
Yeah. Now, Brian, I have not been counting these, but the big board, as you know, with the ticker above us here on the trading floor, it seems like there's an announcement of a stock buyback, and again, I repeat, an announcement of one by various companies coming on about, it seems like one every 3 or 4 minutes. Yes. So that could be an interesting level of support. At the end of the day, we've heard a lot of people saying, and I think in some large measure it's understandable, be patriotic, go out and buy a stock, buy 100 stocks. I will tell you straight out, I have been trying to temper that considerably, suggesting that people let the markets work the way they do best, and that's with sheer economic self-interest. That's what makes them work so well. What do you think?
I think that's a great point, Lou. One of my largest individual clients said to me this morning, Brian, the patriotic buying is a terrific thing. He goes, but fiduciary responsibility is a much better thing and will eventually be a much bigger force in the marketplace. And what that means is the big institutions and the mutual funds, they're as patriotic as you and I and all the traders and all the people in America are, but they've got a fiduciary responsibility to perform the best for the money that they're managing, which is a lot of our money and all of ours money in the big mutual funds. So they've got to do the right thing, Lou, and I think that, in fact, they are. They're looking for spots to buy certain stocks that they might like. They're looking for places to exit other stocks that they may want to get out of, and that's what's going on in the marketplace right now. And, Lou, the other thing that we should mention here is, remember a couple days ago we were talking about, well, maybe we won't allow any shorting in the marketplace. That wouldn't be patriotic. Right. I'm glad we didn't do that. We want to see the markets operate properly with short sellers, long buyers, and short coverers, and everything going on normally and properly at once. And that gives us a much more true picture of what the real marketplace is doing.
Brian, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And like every citizen of this country always has a very strong opinion about everything. You know, I want these markets to work free, but I have to tell you, I have sort of a visceral reaction against short sellers. So, you know, I would probably rewrite the law a little bit, but you're absolutely right. A free market is precisely that. And I thank you very much, Brian, for taking time to talk with us here. Before we close out, Brian, let me ask you real quickly. I've asked you for forecasts over the years. Give us your one-day forecast here at 11, almost 11:08 Eastern Time. How does this market end?
We're getting better right now, Lou. I'd love to say up on the day because I'm as patriotic as everybody else. I'm going to say down 2.5% to 3% on the day, which will be a little bit of a rally up from here.
Absolutely.
Down small, and then get ready for the big rally to come in the ensuing days.
Okay. Brian Finnerty, thank you very much. Paula, with the tick now off about 300 points, suggesting some continued weakness, but at the low side of what we had seen in terms of the indications of weakness in the market, and with the up volume running well behind the down volume by a margin of about 1 to 6, and the Dow off almost 500 points. It looks like this day is going to be interesting from beginning until close. For now, Paula, that's it from here.
All right, thanks so much, Lou. And right now, for those of you who are just joining us, we're going to take you back to what the New York Stock Exchange looked like earlier this morning before its 9:30 opening, at a time when all of the workers there inside of the building paused to honor those who have been lost, not only here, but in Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania, and to show a sign of solidarity.
Marketplace, the green button.
And there you see signs of thumbs up, saying, showing their optimism that the markets will move in the right direction. To the right of Lou Dobbs, of course, Treasury Secretary O'Neill, flanked by Hillary Clinton, Charles Schumer. 75,000 workers trying to get to work today. Many of them suggested and subjected to, in some cases, 5 or 6 police checks. Some workers wearing masks today. Even at the building that houses the stock exchange, you can still smell smoke coming from the debris site. As you know, the markets have been unstable. You can continue to check all the statistics on our screen. We will keep those up there all day long so you can follow it right alongside with us. You are looking at what continues to be a rescue operation, more than 20,000 tons of rubble taken out of here. The mayor confirming that the number of missing at the World Trade Center now comes to 4,957, 190 confirmed dead, 115 of them unidentified. We have also learned that buried underneath here is some 11.8 metric tons of gold worth an estimated $110 million and 30.2 million ounces of silver valued at $120 million. These metals were stored in vaults below 4 World Trade Center, and it belongs to either people or firms that trade future contracts on the New York Mercantile Exchange. Let's go back to Miles now for an update on what is happening on the investigative front. Hi, Miles.
Hello again, Paula. Here are the latest developments this morning in the heart of the financial world. It is back to business time with new blood pumping through it. Before Wall Street reopened this morning, the Federal Reserve cut short-term interest rates by half a percentage point. The move is to help pump life into an economy that's headed for recession. With the major stock exchanges reopening for the first time since Tuesday's attacks, stocks fell sharply. The Dow was down more than 500 points in early trading. The Nasdaq more than 85. Afghanistan has less than 72 hours to hand over suspected terrorist Osama bin Laden or face possible U.S. military attack. A high-level Pakistani delegation delivered that message to Afghanistan's ruling Taliban today. The U.S. considers bin Laden the prime suspect in last week's attacks. But not all Pakistanis support the government. Some 400 members of a radical Muslim youth group held an anti-American protest earlier in Peshawar. The dogged search continues for those responsible for Tuesday's attacks. Authorities have issued 2 new arrest warrants for material witnesses. Those sought have not been named and no other details were released. 2 other witnesses are already in custody. Also, the FBI searched an apartment yesterday in Delray Beach, Florida. It is linked to suspected hijacker Saeed Al-Ghamdi, who was on board that United flight that crashed into a farm field in Pennsylvania. Authorities believe another suspected hijacker may have lived in the same complex. And hope is pushing hundreds of rescuers to dig through the rubble in New York City in search of survivors in Lower Manhattan. The number of missing in the World Trade Center attacks has been revised downward to 4,097. Officials confirm 190 deaths and no survivors have been found now since Wednesday. Still, Mayor Rudy Giuliani says the rescue operation will continue until all hope is gone. Turning now to someone who knows quite well the landscape, the obstacles, and the people in the Afghan-Pakistan region, retired U.S. Air Force General George Harrison. General Harrison, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Just before we bring up the graphic here, your sense of this region as a whole, it'd be difficult to find a region of the world that is more remote than this.
Well, clearly, this will be a different kind of an operation than we experienced in the Gulf War. That was very open terrain, very easy to get at terrain. Difficult logistically, of course, but in this case we have line of sight difficulties. We have all kinds of problems finding specifically what we're going for. I think the graphic you have coming up will illustrate quite clearly that difficulty.
Let's bring it up right now. As a matter of fact, if we can put that on the screen here and take a look. This was done by Dave Hennon in our Weather Center, who gave us a 3D view of here we go. If we can bring that up, and this should zoom me down into the weeds, if you will, as I push this button here, and it does not appear to be working. As we try to get this to work, General, what you have is a mountain pass, a significant mountain pass called the Khyber Pass, which leads into Kabul, and it is, there we go, I must have been pushing the wrong button. I'm not a weather guy. Here's the basic lay of the land here, and we should point out that Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan leadership there today indicated some interest in perhaps allowing this to be staged, a staging point for U.S. warplanes, if that ever came to that. But as we get closer to Kabul here, let's talk about what the options are for bombing. It's very limited because of the terrain and because of the difficulty identifying targets, correct?
Well, I think that the planners who are currently working, as we all know in the Pentagon, figuring out the options for all these kinds of things are well aware of these difficulties, and they're probably going to end up spending a lot of time developing backup plans because there's a high probability for misidentification, non-identification, error. And I think they understand, I know they understand very clearly how complex this operation is going to be.
And when you get to identifying targets, I've heard between 12 and 18 camps may be run by the Al-Qaeda organization, Osama bin Laden's organization. Identifying those camps, is that something that can be done with satellite reconnaissance, or is it more important perhaps to have human resources on the ground in those mountains?
Well, I think your question illustrates how difficult and how complex this entire situation is. We can't depend on photographs, we can't depend on electronic intelligence, we can't depend on technical intelligence. We're going to have to spend a lot of time developing the human side of this operation, and it's going to be a long, drawn-out, very complex operation.
Now, let's talk a little bit, and once you identify those 12 to 18 sites, let's say, for the sake of just a discussion here, the what next is not so simple either. Just going in and dropping a bomb isn't necessarily the solution, is it?
Well, that's obviously right. Depending on the effect that you want to accomplish, taking out an individual or a group of individuals may or may not accomplish exactly what we're interested in. We may have to worry about infrastructure, logistics. We may have to worry about command and control systems. Clearly, this group or coalition of terrorists have a very sophisticated command and control system, and that's going to have to be dealt with. Obviously, if you deal with just one individual, you're going to end up with a replacement for that individual, and the network's still in place. And the network is the key to this.
All right, and I'm going to ask if we could bring up that two-dimensional map of the region, and as we get that map up, I want to ask you this. This is going to require a lot of surreptitious activity, human intelligence, long-term. Things perhaps might happen that we'll never even hear about. Does that jive with the political realities of today, the desire for some sort of public display of revenge?
Well, I think the public does want a display of revenge, and they want something overt and something that's going to happen very quickly. But I think it's clear when you look at the size of Afghanistan that we're not going to do this in a very quick fashion. It's going to be a very long, drawn-out operation. It's going to require a lot of development of the infrastructure and the understanding of what's going on, and it's not going to be just a military operation. We can't do this with a quick, feel-good military strike. It's going to be a long, drawn-out, total government, total coalition operation.
Let's talk just briefly, let's orient people on the region here. If you had an aircraft carrier out here, for example, the distances from here just to the border is about 400 miles. All the way up to Kabul is at least 700 miles. Now, you have a lot of experience flying F-16s. That's pretty much the outer edge of the unrefueled mission, which means refueling or perhaps staging somewhere else. That gets really complicated, doesn't it?
That's obviously correct. We have to stage the tankers from somewhere. All of our tankers are land-based, the long-range tankers are land-based. So you have to have tankers based at some land facility. They have to have the range to get into the central portion of Afghanistan so that the fighters or the attack aircraft can refuel on the way in. Now, if you use long-range aircraft from the United States, that's certainly an option with the B-2, the B-1, B-52, those kinds of things. But that means that you have a very limited sortie capability since you have a 20 or 24-hour long sortie operation.
In other words, you have to plan things so far in advance and that kind of thing. And of course, when you're talking about B-52s, or I suppose the B-2 might be an exception to this, you're up higher generally. The B-2 being stealthy puts you down lower, maybe on more specific targets, not necessarily?
Actually, the B-2 is also a high-altitude aircraft.
Now, if what we hear is true, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan up here, if they were to help out, that drastically changes the capability. If you could stage aircraft there,
well, it does, but of course you don't just move into a strange location like Uzbekistan or Turkestan and begin to operate. You have to develop again the infrastructure that supports you there. And if this turns into much more than an air operation, which I suspect it will, you have to have the logistics to support more than just airplanes. You have to have ground force support. You have to have all those kinds of things that we're used to dealing with.
When we bring up the term ground troops in this, I think many of us conjure up images of, sort of a Normandy-style invasion, that kind of thing. Lots of troops going in. Is there any scenario that you can come up with that would have that sort of presence, or would it be more likely special forces type of operations?
Well, of course, I'm not a ground forces expert by any means at all, but I think that the transformation of the Army over the last decade has led them to develop capabilities that give them more than just a frontal assault capability with infantry. So I think you'll see the U.S. Army being a lot more imaginative than maybe we conventionally think of them. And I'm sure that they will develop different ways to do that. Special forces are clearly an option. All of those kinds of things will be planned by the Joint Staff in the months ahead.
You get the sense that this is not the kind of scenario that the U.S. military really was designed to fight against.
Well, it's certainly not the kind of thing that we have thought about for the last couple of decades, but I think that we have a flexible enough force and enough capability that we can adapt, and I'm sure that that adaptation is going on right now in the Joint Staff and the service staffs.
Is there enough flexibility with the tools that we have in our toolbox to really accomplish the sorts of missions you lay out here?
Not in the short term. Not in the short term. This is not a 1 month or 2 month response operation. This is going to be a very long-term operation.
All right. General George Harrison, United States Air Force, retired now at the Georgia Tech Research Institute right here in Atlanta. Thanks very much for spending a little bit of time with us, giving us some insights.
Thank you.
All right, let's send it up to John King, who is in Washington. John?
Thank you, Miles. One of the dominant subplots today as we track the markets opening on Wall Street and the economic reaction to last week's tragedies is the airline industry. Stocks already falling on Wall Street for the airline industry. Continental Airlines over the weekend announced it would furlough as many as 12,000 workers because of an expected downturn here in the industry. Joining me now here in Washington are Patty Davis with word of possible layoffs at America's #1 carrier.
That's right, John. American Airlines, a source there telling me today that, in fact, the airline expects to announce as early as midweek layoffs at that airline. Now, of course, that was the airline that had 2 of the hijackings, the one that crashed into the Pentagon out of Dulles, and the other one into the World Trade Center. Now, the source would not give me any numbers at this point in terms of expected layoffs or an exact date for those layoffs. What the source is saying is that it is really contingent upon just how bad things are, how bad it is in terms of business rebounding. The source saying, I don't think we will see a lot of people traveling. Now, as you said, that comes on top of Continental announcing 12,000 people to be furloughed. Industry in pretty bad shape, and this is evidence of it.
Over the weekend, there was an effort in the Congress to pass a bailout package, $2.5 billion in direct aid, some loan guarantees in the area of $12 to $13 billion. It was held up in the Congress. Airline CEOs trying to do anything about that?
Well, airline CEOs are coming to Washington tomorrow to meet with Transportation Secretary Norman Mineta to discuss the future of the industry. One other person at American Airlines had told me last week that they clearly welcomed any kind of bailout that the administration, that Congress can give to the airlines. They're clearly hurting. As you see, stocks today for the airlines way down. So, and they're not sure exactly in terms of rebound, in terms of the number of travelers who are going to come back. I was talking to Continental Airlines today, who said that their load factors, or the number of people traveling, way down. People are just not showing up, was the quote from a spokesperson there. So we have a possible really tough time ahead for U.S. airlines.
The theme of the day on Wall Street from the president himself is back to work, back to business, but a few miles behind us is Reagan National Airport, closed indefinitely. What about the rest of the country? Where are we in terms of getting the airline industry, commercial air traffic, back to normal?
Well, Reagan National Airport appears to be the only airport right now, the only major airport that is still closed, and that's really due to security reasons. And as you said, that is an indefinite closing. The FAA saying today that about 2,000 flights were in the air. That was as of early morning. They're updating that throughout the day. That's about half of normal. So also, a good news for commerce in the United States. Mail and cargo started moving again on passenger flights. That was as of yesterday. So things are starting to creep back to normal, but many airlines have said that they're only going to go back up, ramp up perhaps to 80% of their pre-September 11th schedules when those hijackings occurred. So they know that some bad times are ahead, and they're trying to compensate for that.
All right, Patty Davis, thank you very much for joining us here in Washington. The state of the airline industry, also one of the topics of discussion this afternoon when the president meets with his senior economic team at the White House. We'll keep you updated on those deliberations, and for now, back to Paula Zahn in New York.
All right, John, and we're going to follow your lead and talk more about what these plummeting airline stocks, what that impact might ultimately be on the flying public. Joining me right now is Tom Parsons, who is with the company bestfares.com. He joins us from Dallas this morning. Welcome. Good of you to join us, sir.
Good morning.
So I don't think any investor can be particularly happy about watching what's happening in these stocks, but you've got folks out there in the flying public scratching their heads this morning saying, what does this mean to me? Can you tell them what it does mean to them?
Actually, what it does mean to them is it looks like with the airlines actually cutting back 20% of their flights, it may mean we can get to the major airports on time in the future, but we're probably going to have to stick more on the ground up to an hour more just to go through security. I know many of the airlines are letting people make adjustments to their flight schedules. Some are offering refunds. And again, we have to look at how we're going to support these airlines. And again, I do agree that Congress probably needs to loan some money because aviation is just not fun and sun type destinations. It definitely affects all our economy.
But even if Congress comes through with this temporary bailout, when you hear that American Airlines plans to cut jobs, and you hear that Virgin Atlantic Airways has axed a fifth of its transatlantic flights, isn't the trend pretty clear that most of these companies are going to be flying less and less flights?
Oh, sure. And again, they're going to be flying less. But again, I think it's because the demand was going down in the first place before we even had this incident on Tuesday. And this is just going to be the icing on the cake. I think it's gradually coming back. We are seeing people book again. I mean, last Tuesday, all the people I talked to, they probably saw a 90% drop in telephone calls. Today, it's probably, I know in our office, it's more like a 20% drop, which is good for us, but we offer discounts. Some of these little mom and pop shops are probably also going to just disappear because, again, if the phones aren't ringing, people aren't booking flights, these folks are working on nickels and dimes. We could see the industry change very dramatically, even where you buy your airplane tickets today.
Well, let's talk about that. Given the volatility of the markets and no one sort of understanding where consumer demand will continue to go, you're offering discounts of what percent? And can you really guarantee a customer they're going to get that discount when that flight finally goes off?
Oh, sure. I mean, airlines. I mean, we're a discounter, but you got other airlines out there offering sales today. America West is offering. This was a sale beforehand. They actually have a pretty aggressive sale. Southwest is running an internet only. These airlines aren't going anywhere, but they do need the. These are the low-cost carriers in America, which are probably helping us fly. AirTrans too. So again,
all right, Tom, I'm just going to cut in here and let you know that the Department of Justice is now in the process of evacuating its workforce. We have no idea what the nature of that threat is, but CNN has confirmed that the Department of Justice is in the process of evacuating some of its buildings. As soon as we have more details available, we will bring them to you. Let's go back to Tom to get a better understanding of what consumers face in this very uncertain airline industry market. Carry on with your thought about the kinds of discounts some larger shops like your company may be able to continue to offer.
Well, again, I think today you don't need to buy an airplane ticket. Let's see how the airlines handle it. I think they'll be back to some kind of normalcy probably the next 24 to 48 hours. I think each of us have to see the skies are friendly. We have to build up our confidence again. I do believe that the international airlines, if you look at what happened with Pan Am 103 back in several years ago, we watched traffic to Europe diminish by as much as 30%. Well, again, this is probably going to hurt them even more. But again, the one way that they got us on the airplanes was offering us deals and deals. So I still think you got time to sit back and watch deals. I think the airlines are going to be very aggressive. The hotel industry is going to be affected by this too. The 4- and 5-star hotels are probably going to have to end up charging 2- and 3-star rates. The cruise lines are also going to get hurt by this, and the car rentals and the amusement parks. So the whole travel industry is going to be affected. But I do believe it'll come back gradually. We just have to have the better security at the airports. I believe with these part-timers or these turnovers of 400 people a day needs to go bye-bye. I think we need to have a true forces of something that's set up by the government to make these airports secure and have educated and also well-trained and keep up with the newest techniques at those airports.
Probably find a lot of support on that one, Tom Parsons. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, we've been following the markets all morning long. You see the NASDAQ down. Here comes the bug. Yeah, down some 81 points. Let's check back in with Greg Clarkin, who joins us for the NASDAQ market side. What else is going on there?
Well, I'll tell you, Paula, it is early on right now, but we are starting to see some positive signs on the markets, specifically concerning the tech stocks and the NASDAQ. Now, when last we spoke, the NASDAQ was down about 6% or so. It is now down 4.8%, so we're seeing it come back a bit. And also what analysts were saying to watch for today was the large institutional investors, the portfolio managers and the like. They were expected to sit out the open, try to get a sense of the direction of the market before they came into the marketplace. Right now we see volume picking up a little bit. This could be the first signs that some of those big players are getting into the marketplace, and they may be coming in on the upside, doing some buying, since those losses on the NASDAQ are coming back significantly. Some of the tech stocks starting to make gains, actually. We saw Cisco Systems down better than 4.5% a while back. It is now down about 3%. So right now, Paula, the internals, if you will, the fundamentals, beginning to improve on the NASDAQ as it slowly tries to claw its way back.
Any thoughts there? How might all of this action with the airline stocks today as they plummet might have on other sectors of the travel industry? Tom Parsons just brought up in the last interview talking about how the hotel industry might be affected, and cruise lines and the rental car industry.
Without a doubt, Paula, there is a large ripple effect. We saw one particular pocket really hit hard this morning, and that were the internet travel companies, Travelocity, Priceline.com, Expedia, and the like. Those stocks were down anywhere from 30 to 50%. They remain weak, along with the airlines that trade on the NASDAQ. And again, watch those hotel stocks. They're expected to continue to show weakness throughout the day. Again, until they get some real kind of tangible sign out of Washington that some effort, some movement, progress is being made on the possible help for the airline industry.
All right, Greg Clarkin, thanks so much. See you in a little bit. Let's go back to Andy Serwer. We've finally gotten to your name right. Give me some credit here. Your reaction to everything we've just heard, from what Greg reported and what Tom Parsons is reporting about the flying public.
Well, you know, the airline business has been a terrible business for years and years and years. It wasn't exactly a bastion of strength or health even before this started. It has been a basket case. It was weakening as the economy was weakening, and now we're in bad shape.
And that is sort of reflected. We were looking at the overall Dow Jones picture, but the airline
stocks. Those stocks down 40%. The big ones: United, Delta, American, Northwest, U.S. Airlines, all of them doing very poorly. And this is a business that will be very, very different going forward. There's no question about that.
So it is not premature for someone to start asking questions about the survival of individual airlines.
I think that's right. I think this business is going to change, Paul. I think there's going to be more consolidation. You'll see companies being put together. There may be partnerships with overseas airlines. We've seen that already before, but they may be even more firmed up and more formalized.
But the bottom line is, and I think you mentioned this later, that it's ultimately going to give consumers less choices.
I think that's right. I mean, flying is going to be more difficult. You're going to spend more time going through security, and it's going to be a difficult situation.
Your reflections on what the intraday graphic is showing us right now?
We had this big drop at the beginning, a nice, very sharp slide there at one point. We leveled off, we trended up. Now we're trending back down a bit. If you can call this stabilization, maybe this is it. The overseas markets were down about 5% over the past couple days, and we are down somewhere around 5%. So maybe that's what Mr. Market is telling us, that this tragedy means that securities on the New York Stock Exchange need to be marked down 5%. We're not over yet. I still think there are going to be some more bumps. There might be some more very dark days ahead in terms of the economy, in terms of the market. But here's where we are right now, and that's all we really know.
I know that you and I were asking Lou Dobbs and Christine Roman some questions earlier on, and they were feeling, even though the overseas market showed that there was a 5% drop and then the stability was regained late in the trading day, they don't necessarily think the U.S. markets are going to do the same thing.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the foreign markets follow the lead of the U.S. market, and since the U.S. markets weren't trading, they were following what they thought the U.S. markets were doing. So maybe they were right in that the markets are down 5% and they matched it, sort of presaging that drop.
You have spent a lot of time on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Give us your insights into how some of those traders are feeling right now. It's an unprecedented level of pressure on them, isn't it?
It's a lot of pressure, and this is a really tight-knit group of people. It's a very patriotic group. You know, we've seen a lot of American flags down there today, but I have to tell you, if you go to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, you're going to see a lot of American flags even before this tragedy. These are people who care about America and work awfully, awfully hard. There's a tremendous amount of pressure down there, and today the eyes of the world are on them, and I think they truly are responding.
All right, let's go back to what the stock exchange looked like before the opening bell. This was the time when the chairman called for 2 moments of silence, and he called for it flanked by the governor of New York, the mayor of New York, and both of New York senators, as well the Treasury Secretary. Let's pause and try to experience that moment once again.
Our hopes are up, and we're excited to be back to work. That's the mood on the floor itself. People are excited to be back. Anxious. It's going to be a crazy couple of days, perhaps weeks, even months. But we're ready.
And on one hand, it's a very sad situation. On the other hand, you're very happy to see your colleagues and your friends.
Police, fire, emergency rescue, these wonderful men and women who put their lives on the line. This couldn't happen without their great guidance and help, and certainly their love and affection for this great country. Let us all pause.
God bless America.
This nation has unified, has come together. We're going to send a message to these criminals. They cannot destroy the American way of life. They can't destroy this economy. And this great market will lead us to higher and more productive levels in the future. Our heroes will now open the marketplace. The green button.
I think I can say that is the first time I can remember when you couldn't actually hear the opening bells of the New York Stock Exchange, of course, drowned out by the applause and the show of solidarity that so many of the workers there today showed, both in their honoring the 2 minutes of silence preceding the opening bell and their thoughts, as you heard, going into the opening of the markets. Let's go back to Bill Hemmer right now, who joins us from outside the Stock Exchange. With an update on how people are going back to work. Hi, Bill.
Paula, good morning once again. Eddie Tumbarella, did I say it right?
Tumbarella.
Works on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Right. We just heard the replay of the moment of silence and the singing of God Bless America. You were inside. You work here. What did it feel like to you?
I think it was very therapeutic. It sent chills up my back, my spine. I just felt great. I don't think there was a dry eye in the house.
Well, you say there are sometimes moments of silence on the floor, but today was different.
Today it was different. Usually moments of silence are reserved for when members of the exchange die, or maybe a president dies, and just today just felt like we were all in this thing together. It was just fantastic to hear that song being sung, and it just felt great. It just felt great to get back into the city, back to the exchange. I feel good. I feel good about it.
You were off today. You decided to come to work. You were telling me about a sense of camaraderie that you felt. You described it as old school, to borrow
very
a phrase.
Old school.
Tell me more about that.
Well, New York Stock Exchange is very old school. I think we actually take this very personally. I know I do. I think everybody, not only in the city, but the country, takes it personally. And I just felt that I had to come back to work today. I felt it was very therapeutic. I felt good. I was a little tentative at first, but once I heard that bell ring and I heard God Bless America, I felt really good. I Felt great about it.
All right, hang in
Thank
there.
you.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Much
Pleasure.
appreciated. Okay, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Also talking to some of the other traders up the street, Paul, oftentimes they come outside for a little break, some fresh air, possibly a drag on a cigarette, and they were saying that inside the New York Stock Exchange there were 5,000 people with 5,000 different stories. They were talking about it earlier today before they opened, but once the market got rolling, quickly their attention went back to the business at hand. There are more stories across town, just a few blocks away at Ground Zero. CNN's Michael Oku checking in now from there. Michael, what do you have?
Bill, you know, the stock market may be open, but from my vantage point, this is a neighborhood and an entire area that is far from returning to any kind of normalcy. Rescue workers, often working on 24-hour shifts, continue to sift through the rubble and the concrete and the sometimes very hot steel and iron of Ground Zero. And we are told that, according to FEMA, the debris removal officially now will take months. That is what they say, it will take months. And we understand that the EPA is here, that they are checking the air, and that there are decontamination units just on site. And they're looking into the possibility that one of the buildings close to Ground Zero contained a high level of freon. So that's a development that we're going to be watching here today as well. As you can see, the smoke continues to billow outside of the site, sometimes reaching such a degree of thickness that it belies the fact that this is something that happened now almost a week ago. The New York City Fire Commissioner tells us that there are fires burning deep within the rubble, which accounts, of course, for the smoke, which gets rather thick. I spoke moments ago to a firefighter, Kenny Haskell, who may have lost two of his brothers, both firefighters. One was found the other day dead, and the other is missing. This is what he had to say.
Timmy's a firefighter in Squad 18, which is here in Manhattan. My brother Tommy is the captain of Ladder Company 132 in Brooklyn. Initially, a fire of this magnitude necessitates a multiple alarm response. So Tommy's company had come in from Brooklyn actually on the first call, which was immediately a fifth alarm. I was home myself at the time when I heard it on the news, and they were recalling all firemen to come into the city if they were off duty to report to their firehouses, which is what I did. And as I was on my way in, I was trying to inquire whether or not Timmy and Tommy were in fact both working. I wasn't sure at the time. It wasn't until I actually got in here into Manhattan at sometime that night, 8, 9 o'clock at night, that I saw some people that confirmed that they were both in fact inside the buildings when they came down. Timmy's been found. He was found several days ago. I was underneath Tower 1, a void of Tower 1, the day before yesterday when word had spread that they had found him, and some of the members from my company came and got me, and they told me that Timmy had been found, and I left, and they had sent the van to pick me up.
It's an extraordinary story, one of just many. Rescue workers say they continue to find more body parts than they actually find bodies, and at an alarmingly faster rate than they had in the past few days. They are desperate to find anything, any signs of life whatsoever. One rescue worker earlier this morning told us that in an area of the rubble that was completely incinerated, they found a single Bible, and that gave them some hope. One other rescue worker came by here moments ago and gave us only this, a photograph. Whether these people worked in the building or not, we do not know. But they're happy at this point only to find anything. Bill?
Michael Oku over Ground Zero after being there for the better part of yesterday. They also give stories about finding small crevices and taking the smallest man in the group and dropping them down by rope or by line, checking again for bodies and the possibility of human life almost a week after that terrible tragedy last Tuesday. I want to take you back here on Wall Street now. Well, what they're telling us here, the eyewitnesses from last Tuesday, this is a concrete canyon that comes down Broad Street. They're saying when the first building collapsed last week, a huge 70-foot high, 7-story tall, a wall of just ash and soot and smoke came pouring down this canyon. When the second building went down, they say similar scene, but then the smoke was even darker and blacker, and some describe this scene as almost looking like night. And we can see, even though the sanitation crews have been out for the past 6 days, there's still debris. This was brought to us on the roof here, pieces of paper, again, that have blown out of the World Trade Center, and you can see, again, as we have seen earlier, the singed edges of these papers here. And yet again, another reminder of not only the massive job ahead, but again, the incredible tragedy that we witnessed here. More than 5,000 still missing. We'll watch it here again from Wall Street. Back to Paula now. Paula.
Bill, so many of the folks you talked with this morning seem so determined to get back to work. Are they afraid to be there today?
Yeah, some indeed have expressed that very thing. And we have seen Paula walk away from the stock exchange in tears earlier today. It's quite difficult to ascertain what their emotions were at the time, but clearly they were broken up. And, you know, we have talked to some people down here, as evidenced by the interviews we're doing, but a number of people still say they don't want to talk. In fact, one person told us he's all talked out. He doesn't know what else to say. And indeed, one can pick up on that attitude and that emotion that is so strong at this point.
All right, Bill Hemmer, thanks so much. See you in a little bit.
Okay.
I want you to check out the stats in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. The Dow down now. I've got to wait here for this to recycle. 470 points. NASDAQ down some 70 points. And I wanted to give you a historical perspective now on how the Dow has fared during other traumatic events. Following the torpedoing of the British ship Lusitania in 1915, after which the U.S. entered World War I, the Dow was down more than 4% after one day. It was down 7.3% after 1 week, and it was up more than 43% after 5 years. Following the bombing of Pearl Harbor in 1941, the Dow was down almost 3% after one day. It was down 4.6% after 1 week, and it was up more than 46% after 5 years. Let's fast forward to the period of time following Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in 1990. The Dow was down almost 2% after one day. It was down 3.7% after 1 week, and it was up more than 63% after 5 years. Following the bombing of the World Trade Center in 1993, the Dow was down 0.5% after one day, 1% after 1 week. After 5 years, 151.9%. I want to call your attention now to the ongoing rescue operations underway in New York City. Some workers working 24 hours on, 24 hours off. The Federal Emergency Management Agency is now saying that its top priority remains the recovery of those who might still be alive under the debris of the World Trade Center in New York. A quote from Ted Manette, who is an official there, quote, "We're going to stay in the rescue and the response mode for as long as it takes until we are sure we have done everything possible. As long as there is hope, we're going to continue that effort. The city's going to continue that effort. The state's going to continue it. And those urban search and rescue teams are going to continue it. And in the best judgments of the professionals, at some time in the future, they will make that decision as to when we go into recovery." Of course, the agency trying to figure out the amount of damage done. They continue to remove tons and tons of debris. The FEMA officials saying that perhaps at the end of the cleanup operation, maybe as many as 6,000 tons might be hauled out of the debris field. I want to share with you now the cover of the New Yorker magazine that has just come out, hitting newsstands September 24th. And I think it graphically shows you the toll that this disaster has not only taken on New York City, but the rest of the nation. If you open this little insert, you will, and I don't know if you can make it out on the screen, you will see two very dark images which are supposed to represent what once were the 107 stories, twin towers of the World Trade Center. We're going to take a short pause here, but I wanted to let you know coming up we are going to be going live to Afghanistan for the very latest from there. A high-level Pakistani delegation has arrived there, delivering a demand, what some folks are actually calling an ultimatum for the Taliban to turn over the Osama bin Laden leader and supporters or else face military action. Let's take a short break now, and our coverage will continue right after this.
I'm a mother.
I'm a thinker.
I'm a friend.
And I am
we. I am we.
Introducing We, Women's Entertainment, a new television network for women that celebrates all the things we are, with our favorite movies and original series that share our vision, our vitality, and all that we value. If you want We, Women's Entertainment, call 1-866-29-IM-WE and say,
We is for me.
This is a complete broadband solution with a nitro-powered on switch. This is igniting your mission-critical applications on the fattest optical IP pipe on the planet. This is your business, screaming 1,000 times faster than yesterday. This is moving beyond connected. This is riding the light. This is the technology that makes it happen. Quest, ride the light.
And welcome back to our continuing coverage of America at War. We go now to Afghanistan, where Nick Robertson is standing by with the very latest. Nick, what is the latest from Afghanistan?
Well, Paula, the meetings you talked of before, the Pakistani diplomatic mission here to tell the Taliban to hand over Osama bin Laden has been completed. They had 2 rounds of talks today, one with the foreign minister here, Pakistan delegation telling us that they'd come here not only to tell the Taliban to hand over Osama bin Laden, but that they had very little time to do it and that they should resolve the problem quickly. Now, the Taliban foreign minister said that they would consider this issue and they would consider it at the highest levels. This diplomatic delegation from Pakistan had one security chief and one former ambassador to Afghanistan. Both people quite influential here, perhaps as far as Pakistan goes, the best people they could send to influence the Taliban at this time. They then met with the supreme spiritual leader of the Taliban, Mullah Omar. That meeting went somewhat longer, we understand. There was no specific comment after that meeting, but high Taliban officials tell us that they'd heard this message before and that they would consider it. Now, later in the day, Supreme Leader Mullah Omar of the Taliban has announced by radio that religious scholars should gather in Kabul tomorrow, 20 from each province. There are 30 provinces in Afghanistan. That's some 600 of the most senior religious leaders in Afghanistan should gather in Kabul. And he said there they would make up their decisions about these issues, Osama bin Laden, about whether or not, if Afghanistan is attacked by America, then they should declare a jihad. These will be the decisions that this ulama will be, this religious leaders' council will be working on tomorrow.
Once these religious meet, do you expect them to answer this demand within that 3-day period?
They are quite capable of reaching consensus fairly quickly. There was a meeting of religious scholars in one province recently, and they advised the Taliban to keep the doors open to diplomacy. Their meeting lasted only several hours. So they're quite capable of coming up with an answer in a fairly short space of time. There are a few key figures that most others in the council will probably look towards to influence them. After they've made their decision, it's likely that Mullah Omar will take that on board, but it's also very likely that he could make a final ruling himself. So whatever they say may not necessarily be the complete and final outcome. Paula?
Are there any indications there is any preparation for a potential military strike against Afghanistan now underway?
Well, certainly some people that can afford to get their families out of town have taken them out of the towns of Kandahar, Kabul, Jalalabad, all the big cities around the country where the Taliban feel they might be hit by missiles. On the streets, and we traveled some 300 miles today to come down from Kabul to the southern city of Kandahar, the spiritual capital of the Taliban. And on the roads, business looked like normal, but what one did notice were there were far fewer children around in the cities and far fewer women around in the cities. And what we've been told is that many people have chosen to get their families out of town. We also understand from the United Nations High Commission for Refugees in Pakistan that there are significant numbers of refugees moving towards Pakistan at this time.
Do you have any idea of what number of people are trying to head for the Pakistani border?
From where we stand, that's difficult to gauge. When we look at the streets, they're still fairly busy. The markets are still busy. There's still meat hanging on the hooks in the butcher's shops. The bread stores are still making bread daily. The furniture makers are there. The car mechanics are there. You know, essentially on the streets just looks like business as usual, but just a little thinner. One doesn't see any big military preparation underway here, driving down from Kabul again. I mean, very few checkpoints on the road, as one might think that there might be in a country so close possibly to a state of war. So it does appear superficially as business as normal, but trying to gauge figures, very, very difficult to say. Very few people in Afghanistan actually have the finances to try and get their families out. There's been 22 years of war ongoing here, and many people here live a sort of hand-to-mouth existence, if you will, really trying to figure out how they're going to get their meal on the table at the end of the day. They don't have the money to buy a car to get out of town. They can't buy the fuel to put in a car and get themselves out of town. So the availability, the possibility for many people to leave, to get away, that's just not on here. Paula?
Even if Pakistan continues to cooperate and support the U.S. and its friendly nations' efforts, what will happen to Afghanistan when Pakistan no longer provides money to the Taliban, no longer provides weapons?
It's a serious blow for the Taliban. The Taliban would say that they don't derive a lot of support from Pakistan, but most intelligence experts who study this region would say to the contrary. Certainly the Taliban, one of the things it needs most of all is soldiers. Many of those soldiers come from the madrasas, the religious schools across the border in Pakistan. Severing or blocking relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan will dent the Taliban's military capability, will hurt the economy because a lot of food and economic trade goes on between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And even the short-term prognosis for the Taliban under a sustained closure of the border with Pakistan and a sustained abatement of relationships at a political level has to really sound an alarm bell for the Taliban. It's not a good situation for them. There are very, very few other friends that they can turn towards at this time.
Do you expect to be leaked any information by the Taliban or any of the religious leaders as they go about the process of trying to decide whether they will comply with this demand?
We have a good few people who are fairly well placed to pick up the thoughts as they deliberate during the day. I do hope and I do expect that we will be able to get some kind of a read as the deliberation goes. But as I say, whatever the outcome of the deliberation of that religious council, it can still be countermanded by Mullah Omar. He is the supreme religious leader of the Taliban, and his word is essentially law. He will listen to all those around him, but he will make up his mind at the end of the day. He will be guided, but it will be his decision at the end of the day.
Nick Robertson, thank you so much for that report. And we want to thank all of you for joining us throughout the morning. It is now my time to leave and hand the reins over to my colleagues Judy Woodruff and Aaron Brown on the other side. CNN's continuing coverage will start again right after this short break.
Refinancing your mortgage may be easier than you think. Just log on to ditech.com or call 1-800-71-FIX. Today's low fixed rate with 0 points is only 6.750%. With interest rates lower, now may be a great time to get cash or use the equity in your home to consolidate bills. It's smart money from ditech.com. Apply online or call us at 1-800-71-FIX.
For the latest developments as events unfold in America's new war, stay with CNN.
Hi, Billy Mays here for OxyClean, the stain specialist. Powered by the air you breathe, activated by the water that you and I drink. It's Mother Nature approved, then it's safe on your colored fabrics. OxyClean seeks out organic stains. It'll even take red wine and grape juice out of white carpeting. Make a paste, make it 10 times as powerful. It'll whiten your grout and get rid of your toughest stains. Soak your fabrics, even lace. It has the power of bleach without the damaging side effects of chlorine. Use it in your laundry. It'll make your whites whiter, your brights brighter. Call now and you'll receive a whopping 6-pound bucket of OxyClean for just $19.95. But if you call in the next 20 minutes, we'll also include a squirt bottle, a super chamois, and a bottle of our world-famous Orange Clean free. Here's how to order.
Call to order your 6-pound bucket of OxyClean for only $19.95. Call now and we'll include the super chamois, squirt bottle, and Orange Clean absolutely free. Call 1-800-429-3883. Call now.
How would you like to lose that big belly and save big money? Then you need the Abdur system, designed to aerobically burn fat as it flattens your abs in just minutes a day, and it's yours for a fraction of the cost. Look, ab machines strengthen muscles but won't reduce your waist, and some exercises can make your muscles bigger. Only the Abdurs